So before anyone says that this is just some armchair expert talking about something he has no experience in, let me just say that I used to do martial arts and I actually do have experience in this. So hear me out, okay? Ooh, helicopter! Ooh. Greetings, I'm Shad, and please do not downvote this video without watching it. At least hear me out, okay? Because I know there's going to be a lot of people who, at the outset, are probably going to disagree with me because the nunchucks are honestly a beloved martial arts weapon, and even in pop culture. Like, look at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They really helped increase the popularity of the nunchucks, and Bruce Lee kind of really did his best to introduce these weapons into pop culture and in film and things. And so nunchucks are beloved, and as you know, I've shown in the intro to this video, I have loved them quite a lot in the past as well, going through martial arts and everything, learning how to use them, okay? So it's not like I don't sympathize with the appreciation people have with this weapon. Now, one of the reasons why I think they have become so popular is because they look so cool, okay? The methods and ways in which nunchucks are developed to be able to use, right, looks flashy, looks cool. Like, so when you're getting ready and you're there and you can look around and all that stuff, okay, it looks flashy. And you're there and you can hit like that, you know. Look, I get it. These are flashy weapons. But are they really good? In fact, in my opinion, it's only because I've taken a step away from such traditional martial arts that I've been able to look at these more objectively. And in actual fact, because on my channel, one of the main things I like to do is have a look at pop culture weapons and figure out how practical they would be in real life, that mindset has just caused me to naturally gravitate towards real weapons, not just weapons in pop culture, and have a look at them in a more objective standard. And as I have a look at nunchucks, there are problems with them. So please at least hear me out. I get it if you like them, and I'm not saying, you know, they shouldn't be a martial arts weapon, but what I am saying is that for a weapon for self-defense, they're better than nothing, but a good old-fashioned stick is way better. Like tremendously so on many levels. So now please just, as I mentioned, let me explain. The first issue I want to address about nunchucks, and yes, I'm just saying nunchucks. I don't care if you say nunchaka or nunchaku or something. Look, just standard common language for the layman, all right? Nunchucks, right? First issue is about transferal of force. Now, I'm actually being fairly consistent with my criticism here because it's the same criticism I've put against the medieval flail. A medieval flail, in my opinion, is a bit of a rubbish weapon. Its historical validity is dubious at best, and there are many valid questions about if it was even used like very prominently at all in the medieval period, and there are inherent problems. If you're wanting to know what those inherent problems are, please watch my video on overappreciated historical weapons on the flail. And one of the points I mentioned in the flail applies directly to the nunchucks in regards to transferal of force. People sometimes assume that with it being on a loose cord, that when you swing, right, this action here makes the actual striking end hit with greater velocity than it would if it was just a stick. That's actually incorrect, because when you go to hit, now I'm not actually going to I'll step forward so I don't hit him in this one. When you swing with nunchucks, so if I'm getting into the position and go down and swing, that motion right here, there is no lever action like that. It becomes straight and it swings as if it was a stick. And so there's actually no greater velocity on the actual striking end when you swing to hit than if it was actually a stick. So if I go down and I just go like that, all right, now that wasn't even full power, but something happened that I'm going to touch on again, and I'll just point it out, but then we'll go on deeper dive. Do you see how it bounced off and actually hit me here? Now, I'm wearing armor, so it doesn't matter, but if I wasn't, that possibly could have hurt. Now, this is one of the big problems with nunchucks, even over flails. You see, a flail is, like, if they're designed properly, is made so the actual head, when stretched all the way down, does not reach the knuckles, so it can't hit your knuckles. Nunchucks, by their very design, is they're like, no matter what, unless you have a really small end and it becomes a flail, they are always going to be long enough to hit your own knuckles. They are very dangerous to the wielder. I'm going to expound on that a bit more later on. Going back to that initial point. And so when you swing with nunchucks, it becomes essentially a stick anyway. And so we can compare this to another stick of similar length, which I have made right here. This stick is of the same length as, in fact, it's a little bit shorter than the nunchucks stretched out. And I will show you, we'll compare the amount of force I can generate hitting with this compared to hitting with this. But first I want to finish off my point about transferal of energy. Because nunchucks are connected by a cord, there is no rigidity to the actual striking end. And as a result, when you hit with them, like that, well, what's going to happen? Okay, it's not a rigid stick. It's going to happen exactly what we saw before, where the actual striking end can bounce off completely. Now, that means you are actually losing a very large amount of kinetic force that you've thrown into this strike. You have your own mass and weight going behind it, and if you know how to do kinetic linking, where you ground yourself with your feet, and you're pushing off with your feet, and you're using your body weight, and you're throwing yourself into it, the amount of additional force you can put behind a blow is quite large, actually, depending on your own size. Like, the bigger you are, the more force you can put it. That's why in a lot of, boxing and other competitive things, the combatants are divided by weight category, not strength capacity. It's actually your weight that very much determines the amount of force you can generate. For a point of reference, I've brought in Sir Ben. Now, Sir Ben, say hi into the mic.
Hi into the mic.
There we go. So, just to let you know, I'm not actually short. Ben's just a giant, okay? How tall are you?
I'm 6'4".
6'4", all right? Now, not only is Ben stronger than me, like, look at how thick his arms are, okay? Like, just come on, show it. Like, he's a big boy, okay? Not only is he just naturally stronger, he has a much bigger frame and he has more mass in his corner. So Ben is going to be able to hit with way more force than I will. So as a point of reference, we're going to get Sir Ben to do a strike with the wacky stick a bit later on. Oh, and also, if you want to see more of Sir Ben, he appears regularly on my other channel, Game Night. So anyway, he will come back in later, thank you. So as I was saying, the more weight and technique you put into your strike, the more power that there will be. But if there's no structure to the actual striking end, as soon as it hits, there's nothing to drive the force home, and it just bounces off. Compare that to a stick. A good old, like this is a plain, simple, wacky stick. When you hit it, okay, you can drive that force through to a far greater degree because there's complete structure all the way through, and you go, so it's profoundly more effective. In actual fact, in my video on medieval flails, I even proposed that a regular mace would strike with not only just as much force, but more force than a flail would because of this reality, this actual physical reality, okay? And then an awesome YouTube channel called Wushu Engineer had the equipment to test it. And so he made a rudimentary flail and a rudimentary mace and tested the striking force between the two, and the mace hit with as much power, if not more. So I'll link to his video in the description below. It's worth checking out because that, physics tests relates directly to nunchucks. They simply will not be able to hit with as much force as a stick, a basic stick of similar mass and same length. Now, when I say similar mass, my wacky stick is made out of the exact same piece of wood as I made these nunchucks. And yes, I made them myself. But by the very nature of nunchucks, by the fact you have to have a cord or chain connecting the two, so there's no wood here, and to get better control and better feel, usually taper them so you can grasp easier, they're always going to have less mass for the same length. Another problem is where you hold nunchucks, okay? Usually, especially in a lot of the nunchuck forms, you are holding it right here, okay? This gives you far more control. It's a little bit safer because when you hold down here, there's greater velocity that can whack into your own knuckles, but here, hopefully only the cord gets hit. And it's because of the cord you can do fun rollover knuckle kind of things, right? Now, just a note on this. Nunchucks are mostly used to show off. Let's just admit this, okay? They look phenomenal in cutters and things like that. But a lot of the move sets that you're doing, even these fun, fancy things that I'm doing and all that stuff, though they look good, do not work very well when you're actually striking something solid, because it's much harder to control where it bounces after you strike. And you might say, but a master can handle it, Shad. Not nearly as much as you assume, okay? Like seriously, get a master and get him to do every single strike set that he does in a cutter against something real, and do it consistently and regularly without any cuts or anything, and see how often this bounces off at an unpredictable angle. And I'll show you some examples. But because you're more incentivized to hold the nunchuck closer to the cord or chain, it lessens your reach, okay? Look at it, like there. And remember, if you hold it down here, like I said, it's far more dangerous. You can, and I will also do some demonstrations to show you, but when I do, I'm going to be wearing safety equipment, because I actually know how dangerous these things can be. I've trained with them for years back in the day, all right? And yes, when you're training with them, you hit yourself a lot, okay? Even when you start to become fairly competent, yes. I think I almost knocked out a tooth once with these things. Anyway, not these ones, but the ones I had. So let's break down quickly just what we've covered so far. Less power, because there's no structure holding the force to drive it through. Less reach, because you have more control and safety holding them up than lower down. Less mass, because there's missing wood in between. And you're less incentivized to do two-handed one, like an actual big old strike. You could, okay? It's more dangerous, but you know, with an actual stick, it feels natural and normal to two-hand this sucker. So with those things covered, that puts down, just on a technical way, just like the math on the paper, to show that just these things will not be able to perform nearly as well as people think or assume. Because transferring something that looks fancy in a cutter to something real life when you actually need to hit something is actually a very, different thing. And now I will show you. Okay. Apologies if the audio is a bit muffled now, but just to demonstrate how much force nunchucks can actually produce compared to a simple stick, right? But also how potentially dangerous they can be, and what happens when, you're swinging through. Now I'm going to be losing a bit of control over this, so I'll get it underneath the arm, and I'll do a swing up strike where I swing it around and go, all right. It bounced and hit my arm. Again, if I wasn't wearing a thick gambeson, that could have really hurt, okay? So now I'm just gonna do no wind up, just a complete hit, and I wanna try and get him on the ends. So first, let's look at power, but also watch where this bounces when I strike. Hit me right there, with a considerable amount of force that time, all right? Again, if I wasn't wearing a thick gambeson, that could have really hurt. It has the potential to do some serious damage because of how unwieldy and dangerous these things are in reality. Yeah, you can be like, look, hit me again. And so you can try and do the whole, where you go out and stuff. Yeah, there. Again, hit me on the arm. So now I'll hold it down. And let's see about the power, okay? Oh, did I knock it over? All right. So I actually got Boromir to fall over then, though I actually don't know if he was leaning a bit back, helping in, or if I hit with the cord of the nunchuck, which wrapped it around like a hook, and then pulled him down. But looking at the footage while editing, it's actually clear to see that Boromir was already off balance from the previous hits, and this last hit doesn't actually knock him over because he doesn't fall over right away. It just knocked him that one bit further off balance, so much so that he just fell over from being on unstable ground. We're going to compare now to a stick, and a first strike, I'll hold it closer up to where, say, I'd need to hold with a nunchuck, and just do a big old hit, right, Boromir there. Almost fell over then. So now, all the way down to the end, right there, and I'll try and wind up. To me, it's hitting with way more force. But if you really want to see what a stick can do, you obviously use 2 hands and hit like this. I think that says it all. But now to really drive the point home, let's bring in Sir Ben to have a go on the wacky stick and see how much damage he can actually do. One-handed knockover.
And one-handed at the end.
That was in the chest, and he still fell over. 2-handed. He's a big boy. Now, I'm suspecting a lot of you guys are going to want to see Sir Ben do with the nunchucks. The problem is, we don't have a gambeson that fits him at the moment, and the nunchuck bouncing off and hitting me in the shoulder and the forearm is actually legitimately dangerous. So, unfortunately, we don't have time to get Ben to do the nunchuck hits. But I think that at least demonstrates the point that someone with, granted he's stronger than me too, but much greater size as well and mass, can produce greater force, because even on the one-handed strike, he was able to knock old Boromir down. And like, I'll see if I can, I don't think I can. I'll try. A big wind up. See, all right. Strength, mass plays an important role in the amount of force you can generate. But at least I can knock him over 2-handed. Now, that was actually a really good demonstration because it showed something that I wanted to demonstrate. As it hit, okay, I was able to just continue pushing all the way through because it's a straight, rigid shaft, and I can just drive the force home through it. You wouldn't be able to do that with nunchucks. Stick. Plain old stick. Way better than nunchucks. Look, and on top of that, there's one point I didn't even mention. Defense, okay? Because the stick is rigid, I can actually hold it out and defend. You can kind of almost use it like a sword, keep it at bay, and look, you can actually still strike with a lot of power just even holding it like that, you know? So you have reach, you've got defensive capacity because you can hold it out and you can still hit using it like a sword essentially. And so it's a more versatile, devastating weapon than nunchucks. Because seriously, like the defensive capacity on nunchucks is garbage, okay? Like, you know, are you gonna block a sword with nunchucks? On the chain, most of them, they were just cord, and so I just get chopped in two if they were cord, and your fingers are wholly vulnerable, and so if you're... Nunchucks are garbage, man! Like, seriously, they are utter garbage weapons. They have been inflated in pop culture so much so to a level that they do not deserve. They are not an effective combat weapon. They're better than nothing, granted. Like, you'd be able to hit someone harder than with a bare fist, but how hard is it to find a stick? Just get a bloody baseball bat, which is essentially what we've been using, and you've got a weapon that is so much more effective, okay? And look, you can do all the fancy martial arts things, you know, with all those moves and stuff. You're like, martial arts, stick moves and things. You know, so it's interesting. Having come from a place that used to love nunchucks, when I take a step back and really consider them from an objective lens, how utterly garbage they are in reality. Am I wrong? I don't think I am. I get the feeling that there's going to be a lot of martial arts puritans that might be, you know, upset with this video, but if not, look, I'd like to think that people are more reasonable. And I'm not saying you can't enjoy them, because look, they're flashy. They are fun, okay? And when you get a really complex, cool kata going, they can look phenomenal. But they're not good weapons, all right? They can look fancy, still have fun with it. And I'm not trying to take away that from any that you can still enjoy them, but I am saying very clearly that, as I've mentioned multiple times, they are stupid weapons.